Confidence is not something you can fake. It's not something you can buy, it's not something you can demand, and it's definitely not something that comes from pretending you are better than everyone else. True confidence is built in the hours no one sees, in the work you do when nobody is watching, and in the preparation you put into every detail before the moment ever arrives. When you are fully prepared, your confidence becomes undeniable. It becomes silent, steady, and unshakable. Preparation is what turns fear into assurance, doubt into certainty, and hesitation into action. If you want to shatter anyone's confidence before they even step into competition with you, you do it by mastering yourself through preparation. Not by boasting, talking big, or acting arrogant. Think about it this way: people who rely on arrogance to feel strong are like paper tigers. They roar, they posture, they act as if they have power, but the moment pressure hits, the cracks show. Preparation, on the other hand, is invisible armor. It doesn't need to shout, it doesn't need to announce itself. When you are prepared, every move you make is calculated, deliberate, and precise. You enter any challenge with clarity because you know your capabilities, you know your strategy. You have rehearsed the possibilities in your mind, and that awareness radiates confidence without you having to say a word. People notice it, and it unsettles them, because they can feel that you are ready for whatever comes, while they are scrambling to catch up. Preparation is not just about knowing what to do, it's about anticipating what could happen. It's about thinking 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. It's about imagining every scenario, every objection, every challenge, and having a response ready. The person who walks into competition without preparation is vulnerable. They have gaps in their knowledge, holes in their strategy, and blind spots in their thinking. And when they face someone who has done the work, who has rehearsed, who has studied every angle, those gaps become glaringly obvious. Confidence is shattered because they realize they are outmatched before the first move is even made. That is the power of preparation. Preparation also builds mental resilience. Confidence is not just about skill, it's about the ability to remain composed under pressure. When you've prepared thoroughly, you can handle surprises without panic. You can face unexpected challenges without faltering. Your mind has rehearsed adversity so many times that it recognizes it not as a threat but as a problem to solve. That mental edge intimidates competitors. They sense that you are calm, collected, and ready, while they feel exposed, vulnerable, and unsteady. You've already gained an upper hand before the contest even begins, because preparation breeds a quiet, unshakable power that arrogance can never replicate. Another aspect of preparation is physical readiness. Confidence is not just mental, it is embodied. When you train your body, when you condition it to perform under pressure, when you practice until movement is fluid and instinctive, your physical presence communicates confidence. People feel it when someone moves with precision, when they act without hesitation, and when they radiate readiness. That kind of confidence shakes opponents because it signals that you have spent the time, invested the effort, and honed your skills to a level they may not be able to match. They can sense it, and that awareness alone begins to break down their belief in their own abilities. Preparation also requires discipline and sacrifice. It is the early mornings, the late nights, the consistent effort, the refusal to cut corners. When you do the work when others are sleeping, when you push past excuses, when you go beyond what anyone expects, you gain a confidence that is impervious to intimidation. People may try to psych you out, throw challenges at you, or act cocky, but they cannot compete with the depth of preparation behind your presence. That kind of confidence does not come from arrogance. It comes from the relentless commitment to excellence. It's earned, not given, and people recognize it even if they cannot articulate why they feel unsettled in your presence. And here's the key truth: preparation is contagious in its effect. When someone sees that you are fully prepared, they begin to doubt themselves. They begin to question if they have done enough, if they know enough, if they are ready enough. That hesitation, that doubt, that second guessing is exactly what shatters confidence. You don't have to confront them, argue with them, or attack them. You simply show up prepared, and the contrast becomes clear. Confidence built on preparation always outshines confidence built on ego, because it is rooted in substance, not illusion. The most powerful people in the world rely on preparation over arrogance. They understand that readiness is the ultimate weapon. They don't need to talk themselves up or try to intimidate others with noise. They've already done the work, and their quiet, disciplined mastery communicates more than words ever could. If you want to dominate any competition, to outmatch any opponent, to shatter anyone's confidence before they even step forward. Your preparation has to be relentless, total, and uncompromising. That's how real confidence is built. That's how invisible power becomes visible results. That's how you ensure that when you show up, others already feel the edge you've gained before the first move is ever made. Silent discipline is one of the most underestimated weapons you can possess. People think power comes from loud declarations, flashy displays, or aggressive posturing, but the truth is, nothing is more intimidating than a person who is consistently disciplined without needing recognition. Discipline that is invisible, quiet, and unshakable signals to the world that you are operating at a level that words cannot reach. You do not need to tell anyone how hard you've worked, how much you know, or how prepared you are. Your actions, your presence, and the results you produce speak far louder than anything you could say. This is the kind of discipline that commands respect and silently dismantles the confidence of anyone who thinks they can compete with you. Think about people who are loud and boastful. They announce their strength, brag about their achievements, and seek validation through recognition. At first glance, they appear confident, even dominant, but that confidence is fragile because it relies on external approval. The moment someone challenges them, exposes a gap, or ignores their theatrics, their facade crumbles. Silent discipline, on the other hand, is built on internal mastery. It is consistent practice, unwavering focus, and the relentless pursuit of excellence that no one sees. You cannot fake it, you cannot rush it, and you cannot intimidate it. That is what makes it far more powerful than words or showmanship. Silent discipline manifests in the small, consistent habits that people rarely notice. It is waking up early when everyone else is still sleeping, training your mind and body before anyone is watching, studying when others are distracted, practicing when others are exhausted, and showing restraint when others act impulsively. This invisible work compounds over time until it produces results that are undeniable. And when you display those results without fanfare, without a boast, without a demand for recognition, it creates a presence that makes people second-guess themselves. They feel the weight of your preparation, your focus, and your self-mastery, and they start to question if they can ever measure up. Discipline is silent because it requires control over impulses, emotions, and ego. People who rely on noise and bravado are easily provoked. They react to challenges, act on impulse, and let their emotions dictate their behavior. That makes them predictable, vulnerable, and weak. A person with silent discipline, however, is calm under pressure. They think before they act. They respond rather than react. They maintain composure when chaos surrounds them, and that composure is what unnerves competitors. When someone comes at you aggressively, tries to provoke you, or tests your limits, the strength of your silent discipline is like a shield. You are not rattled, you are not shaken, and the contrast between your control and their chaos exposes their insecurity. Consistency is a key component of silent discipline. It is not about a single display of skill or power. Anyone can work hard one day, show up, and perform well. But when you practice discipline day in and day out, when your preparation, your focus, and your habits are unwavering, people begin to notice. They see a pattern. They see that no matter the circumstances, you operate at a high level. That consistency alone is intimidating because it is a demonstration of reliability, mastery, and self-control. It shows that you are not swayed by mood, pressure, or opinion. It is the quiet, relentless force that builds fear in competitors before the competition even starts. Silent discipline also communicates confidence without arrogance. You do not need to tell people how skilled, strong, or knowledgeable you are. They feel it. It is in your posture, in your composure, in your execution. People sense when someone has invested the time, the effort, and the focus required to dominate, and that sensing creates doubt in their own abilities. Your silent discipline becomes a benchmark they cannot match, and that doubt erodes their confidence. The more disciplined you are, the more undeniable your presence becomes, and the less they feel capable of challenging you. Another dimension of silent discipline is restraint. Knowing when to act and when to remain calm is a sign of mastery. People who are reactive show their hand. They reveal their weaknesses. But a disciplined individual waits, observes, and acts at the exact right moment. That patience and precision not only maximize effectiveness, but also psychologically unnerve competitors. They never know when or how you will strike, and that uncertainty creates tension and hesitation. Competitors begin to overthink, second-guess, and doubt themselves simply because they cannot predict the movements of someone who operates with disciplined intent. Finally, silent discipline is contagious in its effect. When others see your focus, consistency, and control, they begin to compare themselves. They notice the hours, the effort, and the self-mastery behind your calm exterior. They realize that they have not invested nearly as much, and that they are unprepared to compete at your level. That realization, even if unspoken, begins to chip away at their confidence. They start questioning whether they can match your standards, replicate your consistency, or withstand the mental toughness you have cultivated. And that is how silent discipline shatters confidence. It doesn't yell, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't demand respect. It simply exists unwavering, and that presence alone makes others doubt their ability to compete. When you cultivate silent discipline, you create a space where your preparation, self-control, and consistency do all the work. You command authority, project confidence, and subtly break the assurance of anyone who thinks they are on your level. And the beauty of it is that this type of power is sustainable. It is not fleeting or performative. It is embedded in who you are, in what you do daily, and in how you carry yourself. And once you master silent discipline, you become untouchable in ways that words and theatrics could never achieve. Emotions are the battlefield, and the person who can master their emotions controls the field. People underestimate this because they think strength comes from skill, strategy, or raw power. Those things matter, but they can all be neutralized if someone loses their composure. A competitor who acts impulsively, who reacts to every insult or provocation, gives away their advantage. Their mind becomes their enemy, their focus is fractured, and their confidence collapses under the weight of uncontrolled reactions. If you want to shatter someone's confidence before they even have a chance to compete with you, the first step is to master yourself, to stay calm when they try to provoke you, to remain focused when they attempt to destabilize you, and to project unshakable composure no matter what happens. When people disrespect you, challenge you, or try to intimidate you, their goal is emotional reaction. They want to see anger, frustration, hesitation, or doubt. They want to destabilize your thinking and make you act in ways that are predictable, impulsive, or weak. But when you control your emotions, you deny them that power. Your calm becomes a weapon. Your clarity becomes a shield. While they are scrambling, reacting, and revealing their vulnerabilities, you are steady, composed, and calculating. The more controlled you are, the more nervous they become. The more calm you are, the more they question their own readiness. Emotional control is the silent signal that you are untouchable, that no provocation can sway you, and that you are operating on a level they cannot reach. Emotional control is not suppression. It is mastery. Suppressing emotions is temporary, shallow, and often leads to an explosion at the wrong moment. Mastery is different. Mastery is recognizing the emotion, understanding its source, and using it strategically. When someone attempts to trigger fear, frustration, or anger, you observe it, assess it, and decide how it benefits or hinders your objectives. You do not react automatically, you respond with intention. That response could be measured words, deliberate action, or even strategic silence. The key is that you are in control. When you maintain this level of control, your opponents begin to doubt themselves because they see that their tactics cannot touch you. They realize that you are a problem they cannot manipulate. Control over emotions also enhances your decision-making. People who are ruled by impulse make mistakes under pressure. They lash out, overcommit, or miscalculate. A competitor who remains emotionally balanced can see opportunities others miss, anticipate moves, and exploit weaknesses. This strategic advantage alone is enough to dismantle someone's confidence. They may have prepared, trained, or strategized, but they cannot predict or counter a presence that is calm, focused, and mentally unshakable. Emotional control becomes a weapon that amplifies every other strength you have: your preparation, your skill, your discipline. It creates a gap that your competitor cannot bridge. Confidence is contagious, and so is doubt. When you control your emotions, you project stability. You project strength. You project certainty. Others sense it immediately. They may try to intimidate you, but your calmness signals that their efforts are meaningless. That perception spreads, undermining their confidence before they even act. They begin to hesitate, second-guess, and question their own ability. Every attempt they make to destabilize you is neutralized, and their belief in themselves begins to erode. You do not have to confront them aggressively. Your emotional control does the work silently, invisibly, and powerfully. Emotional control also demonstrates experience and poise. People respect composure because it reflects self-mastery and situational awareness. The person who reacts impulsively is vulnerable, predictable, and easily manipulated. The person who maintains calm is unpredictable, formidable, and strategically dangerous. In competitive settings, unpredictability combined with calm is terrifying because opponents cannot read your intentions or anticipate your moves. They begin to doubt not just their ability to beat you, but their ability to even keep pace. That doubt, once seated, grows quickly, eroding the confidence they had before the encounter even began. Another dimension of controlling your emotions is resilience under pressure. When someone attempts to provoke you or shake your focus, your ability to maintain calm communicates that you are unshakable. They may increase the intensity, escalate tactics, or try every psychological trick in the book, but emotional control makes those efforts irrelevant. The more pressure they apply, the more you demonstrate your composure, and the more they feel their own inadequacy. That is how controlling your emotions directly breaks someone else's confidence. They measure their own reactions against yours and realize they fall short. Finally, controlling your emotions sets the tone for the entire environment. Others observe your responses. They mirror your energy. When you remain steady, you create a psychological advantage that extends beyond direct competition. Allies gain confidence in your leadership and stability, while adversaries recognize that their attempts to intimidate or unsettle you are futile. You dominate the field not by shouting, not by boasting, not by aggression, but by demonstrating mastery over the one thing that truly separates strength from weakness. Your own mind and your own emotional state. Body language is the silent language of power. Long before words are exchanged, long before a strategy is revealed, the posture, movement, and presence of a person communicates authority, confidence, and dominance. People underestimate how much of their perceived power comes from physical cues. The way you carry yourself, the way you hold your head, the steadiness of your gaze, the control in your movements, they all send a signal. When you master your body language, you project confidence that no words can replicate, and you silently undermine the confidence of anyone who dares to compete with you. They may be prepared, they may be skilled, but if their body betrays uncertainty while yours radiates control, the psychological advantage is already yours. First, posture sets the stage. Standing tall with shoulders back, chest open, and head held high communicates unshakable confidence. It tells the world that you are ready, capable, and unafraid. Conversely, slouching, fidgeting, or avoiding eye contact signals vulnerability, hesitation, and doubt. People intuitively pick up on these cues. They read posture before they even hear a word, and they make judgments about your capability, strength, and authority based on it. When you maintain powerful posture consistently, you create an aura that makes others question their own readiness. They feel the weight of your confidence before they even consider engaging. Eye contact is another critical element. A steady, focused gaze conveys certainty, attention, and dominance. People who avoid eye contact appear insecure or submissive, while those who meet the gaze of others with calm control establish presence and authority. The eyes are more than a window to the soul. They are a tool of influence. When you hold someone's gaze without intimidation, without aggression, you silently communicate that you are unshakable. You are aware. You are prepared. And that awareness alone can disrupt someone's confidence because they sense that their usual tactics of provocation or manipulation will not work on you. Movement and control of your physical space also matter. People who are aware of their body language move deliberately and intentionally. They take up space without being arrogant. They enter rooms with composure, and they navigate environments with precision. Those who fidget, pace, or move unpredictably signal nervousness and uncertainty. Competitors instinctively notice these differences. Someone who moves with calm, calculated control communicates mastery over themselves and their environment. That silent display of discipline causes others to second-guess their own actions, their own preparation, and their own ability to compete. Gestures reinforce presence. Small, controlled gestures demonstrate self-assurance. Open hands convey honesty and transparency, while closed fists or nervous twitches betray tension. People who master subtle body cues can direct the attention of others, command respect, and project authority without ever speaking. The cumulative effect of posture, gaze, movement, and gestures is a presence that dominates the room. Others instinctively recognize that they are facing someone who is not easily influenced, intimidated, or undermined. That recognition chips away at their confidence, sometimes before a single word is exchanged. Breathing is an often overlooked aspect of body language that directly affects perception. Slow, steady, and controlled breathing signals calmness, control, and readiness. Shallow, rapid, or erratic breathing conveys tension and instability. When you control your breath, you control not only your own nervous system but also the perception of those around you. They sense it instinctively. They feel your composure and they feel their own uncertainty in contrast. This physiological advantage works silently but powerfully, reinforcing your presence and diminishing the confidence of anyone trying to challenge you. Facial expressions are equally crucial. A composed, neutral expression communicates control and focus, while overreactions, grimaces, or visible frustration reveal vulnerability. The face is the first thing people read when assessing confidence. By maintaining calm, deliberate expressions, you convey that you are unflappable. Your competitors feel tension, doubt, and unease because they realize that their attempts to provoke or unsettle you are ineffective. Mastering facial expressions is mastering psychological advantage. Every flicker, every twitch, every micro-expression matters, and consistent control over these signals builds an invisible wall of authority that others cannot penetrate. Consistency in body language is key. If your posture, gaze, gestures, breathing, and expressions fluctuate, you communicate instability. If you are steady, intentional, and composed, you radiate confidence that is impossible to ignore. Others feel it even if they cannot articulate it. They sense your readiness, your calm, and your mastery. They begin to question themselves, doubt their own abilities, and feel unprepared to meet your level. This silent psychological advantage, built entirely through body language, can dismantle confidence before competition begins. Words are powerful, but presence built on controlled, deliberate body language speaks first, louder and more effectively than any argument, boast, or display. Finally, mastering body language is not about deception or pretending. It is about alignment between mind, body, and intent. True control, true confidence, flows naturally from preparation, discipline, and self-mastery. The more you train your body to reflect your inner strength, the more others sense that strength, and the more their confidence falters. Silent physical presence backed by skill, preparation, and discipline becomes an invisible weapon that sets the tone, establishes authority, and subtly dominates the field before competition even begins. Knowledge is power, and in competitive environments, knowledge is a weapon that can dismantle confidence before a single confrontation even begins. Most people underestimate the psychological effect of knowing more, understanding more, and seeing further than the person across from you. They think skill, talent, or aggression are the deciding factors, but knowledge is the silent edge that creates doubt in others, forces hesitation, and erodes confidence. When you arm yourself with information, strategy, and insight, you don't have to shout or threaten. Your presence alone communicates superiority. The person who underestimates the value of knowledge will find themselves outmatched, surprised, and questioning themselves long before the battle starts. Knowledge allows you to anticipate moves, predict behavior, and identify weaknesses that others are blind to. Preparation is important, but preparation without understanding is limited. If you know not only what is likely to happen, but why it happens, how it happens, and when it will happen, you gain a strategic advantage that your opponent cannot counter. They may have strength, skill, or confidence, but when faced with someone who has thoroughly studied every angle, every pattern, every possible reaction, their assurance begins to crumble. The realization that they do not see the full picture, while you do, is a psychological blow that no amount of bravado can overcome. Information also builds mental resilience. When you know the terrain, the challenges, and the potential traps, you are not reacting blindly. You are moving with intention, confidence, and precision. Every decision is informed, every step is calculated, and every response is deliberate. This level of awareness communicates dominance without aggression. People instinctively sense when someone has insight they lack. They notice your composure, your anticipation, your understanding, and that awareness triggers doubt. They may try to act confidently, but internally, they are second-guessing every move, every choice, and every strategy because your knowledge exposes the gaps in their preparation. Knowledge is also a tool for strategic influence. When you demonstrate understanding, speak with authority, and make decisions that reveal your insight, you subtly destabilize others' confidence. People naturally compare themselves to those who appear more informed, more aware, and more capable. When they realize they are outmatched intellectually, they hesitate, doubt themselves, and question their readiness. Knowledge is not just about accumulating facts, it's about applying them in ways that control the environment, anticipate challenges, and create opportunities while others are still figuring out what is happening. Mastering knowledge requires discipline and intentionality. You cannot rely on what you already know. You must constantly learn, analyze, and expand your understanding. The person who stops learning becomes predictable, static, and vulnerable. The person who pursues knowledge relentlessly creates a gap that competitors cannot close. They are always a step ahead, always prepared, and always confident in ways that are grounded in reality, not ego. This consistency in growth and understanding builds authority and power silently but unmistakably, sending a message to anyone observing that they are not ready to compete at your level. Knowledge also provides a shield against manipulation, distraction, and provocation. When others attempt to unsettle you, confuse you, or mislead you, a well-informed mind remains unshaken. Your decisions are not influenced by emotion, impulse, or pressure, but by a clear understanding of the facts, the strategy, and the situation. This clarity not only protects your own confidence, but also undermines the confidence of anyone who tries to test or intimidate you. They quickly realize that their usual tactics are ineffective because you are operating from a position of superior insight. Furthermore, knowledge gives you the ability to see beyond the immediate. While others focus on the moment, you anticipate patterns, understand trends, and predict potential outcomes. This long-range thinking creates a sense of inevitability in your favor. Your opponent senses it, whether consciously or subconsciously. They feel pressure, uncertainty, and hesitation because they recognize, even if they cannot articulate it, that they are not prepared for what you have foreseen. That anticipation becomes a silent weapon that dismantles confidence without confrontation. Knowledge is also a confidence amplifier. When you are informed, prepared, and aware, you operate with certainty. That certainty radiates. It influences body language, tone, and decision-making. People are drawn to confidence, and they instinctively recognize when it is grounded in understanding rather than arrogance. Your competence, backed by knowledge, communicates power and dominance, and the contrast between your authority and their insecurity erodes their self-assurance. Knowledge, when wielded correctly, does not intimidate with noise or aggression. It intimidates by demonstrating undeniable readiness. Finally, knowledge combined with action is unstoppable. Understanding alone is not enough. You must apply what you know with precision, discipline, and intention. The person who possesses insight but fails to act still leaves opportunity for competitors to challenge them. But when you consistently act on your knowledge, making informed, decisive, and strategic moves, you create a presence that is impossible to ignore, impossible to counter, and impossible to shake. Others recognize the gap and are forced to question their own preparation, ability, and readiness. That is how knowledge becomes a weapon, silently dismantling confidence, creating strategic dominance, and ensuring that when competition begins, you are already in control. Boundaries are one of the most underestimated weapons in any competitive arena. People confuse boundaries with rigidity or stubbornness, but true boundaries are the framework of strength. They signal to the world, without words, what is acceptable and what is not. They communicate that you are in control, that your time, energy, and focus are valuable, and that you cannot be manipulated or pressured into submission. When you establish clear boundaries, you force others to adjust to your terms. You create an invisible perimeter that protects your confidence, your resources, and your authority. Anyone who wants to compete with you or challenge you must first reckon with the limits you set, and that alone begins to dismantle their assurance. A boundary is more than a rule. It is a declaration of self-respect. It tells others that you recognize your worth and refuse to allow behavior that undermines it. People who lack boundaries often become targets of manipulation, distraction, or disrespect because they have not defined what is off limits. They are reactive instead of proactive, letting others dictate the pace, tone, and direction of interactions. But when you operate with defined boundaries, you are proactive. You control the environment, dictate the terms of engagement, and communicate that you will not tolerate undermining, dishonesty, or overreach. That control creates unease for anyone who thinks they can compete with you without first respecting those lines. Boundaries also serve as a test of character for others. When you set limits, people reveal their intentions. Those who respect your boundaries demonstrate awareness, discipline, and maturity. Those who ignore or challenge them show weakness, lack of control, or disrespect. By observing who honors your boundaries and who does not, you gain insight into your competition. This insight allows you to adjust your strategy, anticipate tactics, and recognize vulnerabilities. In essence, boundaries function both as a shield and a diagnostic tool. They protect your confidence while simultaneously providing intelligence about the mindset and approach of those around you. Establishing boundaries requires clarity and consistency. It is not enough to set rules occasionally or to waver under pressure. Boundaries must be unwavering and clearly communicated, whether through action, tone, or behavior. When others encounter a boundary and see that it is enforced without compromise, they immediately adjust. They realize that their usual tactics, whether intimidation, persuasion, or manipulation, will not succeed. That realization erodes their confidence because it demonstrates that you are not easily influenced, controlled, or shaken. You operate on your terms, and that autonomy becomes an invisible force that destabilizes anyone attempting to compete. Boundaries also protect mental and emotional energy, which is critical for sustaining confidence under pressure. People who allow themselves to be drawn into distractions, arguments, or unnecessary stress expend energy that should be reserved for strategy, preparation, and action. By enforcing limits on what you engage with, who you allow into your space, and how others treat you, you conserve your resources for what truly matters. Competitors who are less disciplined will notice your focus, your composure, and your ability to remain unshaken. They may have skill, talent, or preparation, but if their energy is scattered while yours is concentrated, they are at a disadvantage before the contest even begins. Boundaries also convey authority through non-verbal communication. When someone crosses a line and you calmly, assertively correct it or withdraw, you project control. You demonstrate that you are not reactive in a way that signals weakness, rather you respond with intention, teaching others the consequences of disregarding your limits. This silent assertion of power is far more effective than confrontation or argument. Competitors sense it instinctively. They feel the authority behind the boundary and begin to recalibrate their expectations. Their confidence falters as they realize they cannot operate on their usual terms because you have already dictated the framework of engagement. Another dimension of boundaries is self-discipline. Setting limits requires courage, awareness, and the ability to prioritize what matters. Boundaries force you to confront discomfort, resist temptation, and remain consistent even when others pressure you to bend. That self-discipline reinforces confidence internally, and it radiates externally. People sense that your confidence is grounded in structure and clarity rather than fleeting emotion or superficial bravado. When competitors recognize that your confidence is backed by disciplined boundaries, their own certainty diminishes because they understand they are facing someone who cannot be easily shaken or coerced. Finally, boundaries create a psychological advantage that compounds over time. Every interaction where you enforce a limit, every decision where you uphold your principles, every moment where you assert control sends a clear message. You are not a passive participant, you are the standard. Competitors, allies, and observers alike recognize this authority. The more consistently you enforce boundaries, the more your presence shapes behavior, expectations, and outcomes. People adjust to you because they must, and in that adjustment they reveal uncertainty, hesitation, and doubt. Boundaries, therefore, are not merely protective, they are offensive. They prepare the battlefield in your favor, dismantle confidence silently, and ensure that when competition begins, you have already established dominance. Consistency is one of the most overlooked yet powerful tools in establishing dominance. People often focus on flashes of brilliance, moments of skill, or bursts of effort, thinking that short-term performance defines success. But anyone who has mastered a field understands that true power lies in sustained action. Consistency crushes competition because it builds trust in your own capabilities, projects unwavering reliability to others, and gradually erodes the confidence of anyone trying to measure up to you. When you show up day after day performing, improving, and delivering results, you create a level of dependability that cannot be ignored, and that reliability intimidates those who rely on sporadic effort or external validation. Consistency establishes a rhythm that others cannot match. While competitors may have moments of brilliance, they are often inconsistent in effort, preparation, and focus. They burn bright for a moment, then fade, leaving gaps that undermine their perceived competence. But when you are consistent, you build momentum. Every action, every choice, every effort compounds over time. People notice the pattern. They see that no matter the circumstances, no matter the pressure, no matter the distraction, you perform. That reliability forces them to measure themselves against a standard they cannot maintain. Confidence falters because they realize that sporadic skill cannot compete with relentless persistence. Consistency is also a reflection of discipline and self-control. It demonstrates that you are not swayed by emotion, ego, or circumstance. You do not rely on motivation alone because you have built habits, systems, and routines that ensure performance regardless of external conditions. When others observe this, it creates a psychological advantage. They recognize that your strength is not fleeting or situational. It is embedded in your character, in your work ethic, and in your approach. That awareness alone destabilizes their confidence because they understand that they are competing against someone whose reliability cannot be undermined by setbacks or challenges. In addition, consistency breeds expertise. Repeated practice, repeated effort, and repeated focus lead to mastery over time. Competitors may have knowledge or talent, but consistent application transforms skill into dominance. When you demonstrate mastery through consistent performance, it sends a message that goes beyond words. Others sense that they are facing someone whose abilities have been honed through repetition, rigor, and relentless commitment. That perception is intimidating because it is backed by proof. They realize that no matter how prepared or talented they are competing against someone who has built their edge through unwavering dedication. Consistency also builds credibility and authority. When you show up reliably, others learn to trust your capability, judgment, and presence. This trust reinforces your influence and elevates your status in any environment. For competitors, observing this credibility creates self-doubt. They recognize that they are not just facing a skilled individual. They are facing someone who consistently demonstrates competence, resilience, and focus. That awareness chips away at confidence because they feel pressure to match a standard that is unyielding and ever-present. The compounding effect of consistency is critical. Each day of preparation, each day of focused effort, each day of disciplined action adds to your advantage. Competitors may gain temporary ground, but consistent progress ensures that over time, the gap widens irreversibly. The person who relies on sporadic effort, luck, or short-term bursts of performance begins to feel the weight of comparison. They experience frustration, self-doubt, and anxiety because they cannot replicate your persistence. Consistency creates inevitability. Your growth, your results, and your presence become a force that cannot be ignored. Consistency also enhances mental toughness. By showing up and performing regardless of conditions, you cultivate resilience, focus, and patience. You learn to handle setbacks without derailing your effort, to adapt without losing momentum, and to stay committed when others quit. That mental strength is contagious in its effect. It signals to competitors that you are unshakable, strategic, and prepared for the long game. They sense that temporary tactics, psychological ploys, or intimidation cannot disrupt your rhythm. That realization undermines their confidence because they see that they are competing against someone whose stability is beyond their reach. Another dimension of consistency is predictability. In excellence without predictability and strategy, competitors may know that you perform reliably, but they cannot anticipate how or when you will leverage that consistency for advantage. The disciplined, consistent individual can time actions, seize opportunities, and execute strategy in ways that disrupt opponents while maintaining steady performance. This combination of predictability in preparation and unpredictability in execution creates psychological pressure. Competitors begin to question their own approach, second-guess decisions, and feel insecure because they cannot predict the full impact of your relentless presence. Finally, consistency communicates integrity and self-mastery. It reflects that your actions are guided by principles, commitment, and focus rather than by impulse or external validation. People recognize that your confidence is not a facade but a reflection of real, ongoing effort. This perception alone is enough to dismantle the assurance of those who rely on superficial confidence or short-term performance. When competition begins, the cumulative effect of your consistent preparation, effort, and discipline ensures that you hold the psychological advantage. Others may have skill, talent, or knowledge, but they cannot match the quiet, unyielding power of someone who consistently shows up, performs, and dominates without fail. Self-mastery is the ultimate edge, the invisible armor that separates those who dominate from those who flounder. People spend their lives chasing external validation, relying on luck, skill, or charisma, without realizing that true power begins inside. Control over your thoughts, emotions, habits, and decisions is what makes you untouchable. When you master yourself, no tactic, insult, distraction, or provocation can destabilize you. You become the constant in a world of chaos, the force that others must reckon with before they even think about competing. Self-mastery is not just about self-discipline, it is about total awareness and control, the understanding that every choice you make defines your confidence, your strength, and your presence. To achieve self-mastery, you must first understand your mind. Awareness of your thoughts, triggers, and tendencies allows you to anticipate moments of weakness and neutralize them before they affect your actions. People who lack this insight are reactive, emotional, and inconsistent. They are swayed by external forces, manipulated by opinion, and disrupted by challenge. Those who master their mind operate differently. They see threats and opportunities clearly. They assess situations without panic or bias. They respond deliberately rather than react impulsively, and that control makes them untouchable. Competitors sense it immediately. They feel the unshakable calm, the deliberate presence, and the clarity of focus, and they realize they cannot manipulate or unsettle you. Self-mastery extends to emotions. Controlling fear, anger, frustration, and doubt is essential to maintaining authority and influence. People who let emotions drive decisions become predictable, vulnerable, and ineffective. The person who controls emotions, however, turns every challenge into an opportunity for strategic advantage. Calmness under pressure signals strength. Composure in the face of provocation communicates that you are operating from a place of certainty and awareness. Competitors instinctively feel the difference. They attempt to provoke, manipulate, or intimidate, only to discover that their tactics are ineffective. Their confidence falters because they realize they are facing someone who is unshakable, someone whose strength comes from within rather than from circumstance. Self-mastery also requires discipline in habits. The choices you make consistently define who you are and how you are perceived. Discipline in routines, preparation, training, and personal development cultivates resilience and skill. Over time, these choices compound into capabilities that others cannot match. Competitors may be talented, motivated, or even experienced, but they cannot replicate the power that comes from relentless, consistent cultivation of one's own abilities. The presence of someone who has mastered their habits is intimidating because it demonstrates a level of commitment and internal strength that cannot be easily challenged or disrupted. Another critical component of self-mastery is control over your environment. This does not mean controlling others, but rather mastering how you respond to the environment, manage interactions, and create conditions favorable to your performance. People who lack this skill are easily influenced by noise, distraction, or chaos. Those who have mastered themselves operate with clarity regardless of external conditions. They remain focused on objectives, adapt strategically, and project authority through calmness and decisiveness. The psychological effect on others is immediate. They sense the gap between their reactivity and your composure, and that doubt begins to erode their confidence even before any confrontation occurs. Self-mastery is reflected in decision-making. People who are mastered by impulses make poor choices under pressure. Those who have mastered themselves make decisions with precision, clarity, and strategic intent. Every action is deliberate, every response is measured, and every move is calculated. This level of control forces competitors to hesitate, second guess, and question their own judgment. They feel that no matter what tactic they employ, they are facing someone whose choices are informed, intentional, and resilient. That psychological edge is often more decisive than skill or talent because it undermines confidence at its root. Mastery is also about understanding timing and restraint. Knowing when to act, when to speak, and when to remain silent is a hallmark of power. People who act impulsively reveal vulnerability and invite challenge. Those who exercise restraint operate with authority and unpredictability. They control the tempo, create anticipation, and exploit opportunities with precision. Competitors sense this control instinctively. They see that they cannot force your hand, anticipate your moves, or manipulate your behavior, and that realization chips away at their assurance. Finally, self-mastery integrates mind, body, and presence. Your posture, your gaze, your movements, your composure, all reflect your internal control. When you have aligned your habits, your emotions, and your strategic thinking, you project untouchable authority. People do not need to know your skill or strategy to recognize your dominance. They feel it in your presence, in your steadiness, and in your confidence. That perception creates hesitation, uncertainty, and doubt, and it ensures that before competition even begins, you have already gained a psychological advantage. Self-mastery is the ultimate weapon because it cannot be taken away, it cannot be undermined by circumstance, and it ensures that no one can destabilize you,